Welcome back, everybody, and this is our first episode where we break down. It's called Episode Breakdown. Every week, every Tuesday, unless it's a holiday, we will come in here and starting with the very first episode all the way through to the very last episode where Fred graduates high school. We are going to be talking about Sanford and Son, doing show breakdown, going over anything about the show, giving a summary, giving our thoughts, and having all sorts of interesting facts that hopefully you guys can enjoy. So right off the bat, let's get to it. So the very first episode, just like all the first ones in the first season, the entire first season was taken from the show Steptoe and Son. It is a British comedy, and this is the only one of the original first season that actually kept the same title, Cross Swords. In this episode, we get to meet Fred and Lamont, and it's the only time I believe ever in show history where there's a piano shown in the living room. You really never see that angle. It starts out where it shows the camera twist and you see Fred cleaning the player's piano. That's usually where the TV is, and a lot of times right where the audience perspective is, and it's supposed to be a blank wall. Now, as we're sitting there, we see Lamont pull in his truck, the very famous Sanford and Son truck. He gets out and he can hear Fred singing his song with the player piano. Now, as he comes out, Fred greets him, and Lamont comments and says, "Hey, what you doing in there, Liberace?" Now, a very good trivia question. I would like to see you guys comment in the section below. Answer it if you know it. Liberace. When Lamont calls Fred Liberace, it's very ironic because I believe it's season 5. We do know season 4 or 5 in the different episode. Fred calls Lamont Liberace. He calls him something to Liberace. Comment in the comments below if you know what the episode was and what he was exactly referring to when it came to Lamont looking like Liberace. And it had nothing to do with the singing. So anyways, back to the show. As he comes in, he goes out there and greets him. And this episode is a great opportunity. Now, as you will notice through the whole first season, there are funnier moments as it goes on. But there's a lot of this, especially with this episode, where because it's the original, it's setting up their relationship. So right away we see Lamont is very testy, as he is a lot in season 1, quick-tempered with Fred. And Fred seems much more mellower in this opening season and this episode, where he comes off as just this guy who's 64. He's working hard with his son, with his business. And Lamont does not have the same kind of energy or even really seem like he wants to do this. And so he comes inside and they're bickering, and it is almost like they are a married couple, which is referred to several times by other people. But it does seem like they are a married couple the way they bicker back and forth. And Lamont clearly says, "Look, I don't want this life." He wants to find a way to make it big, and they set that up.
And it's going to be my one-way ticket out of here. First thing tomorrow morning, I'm getting out of here.
You can see it right there where you got Fred who's content. You know, of course he would love to be rich, but he's happy in his life. He's doing his best to work the job and have a good time. While Lamont is the young guy who wants to make it big and get out of here. He does not want to follow in his father's footsteps. So I do like that they set that up. And that's what happens as Lamont comes in, and then Fred goes out there. He wants to carry in something they brought. And Lamont's like, "Don't touch it. Don't you even touch this." He doesn't want his dad to have a finger on this because he's afraid he can break it or ruin it, like it seems like he always does. And we just met them and we already get that feeling. So they come in and Lamont sits down and he shows them. And Fred says it's a piece of china. And in this, and then Lamont, of course, has one of the best lines of the episode as we try to break the top 5 moments. We'll see if this is probably one of them. But as he goes through it, he's like saying, looking at it, saying, "No, this is porcelain." He describes how it's porcelain. He knows this is worth some money. And he tells Fred, "I'm porcelain," because he says it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. And then he calls
a thing of beauty, class. That's me. I am porcelain. You are crockery.
Fred, crockery. Basically, we know the cheap version, and that's what he is. And right there, like I said, throughout the show, they paint that. They set it up to where Lamont feels like he is better than this, while Fred is below it, and Lamont is better than him and wants to move on. And you see that naturally with a lot of youth in their days where they feel like, hey, I can do better than this. But he knows this is something valuable. And as he starts to explain how Fred how he got this, he tells him he saw this older white woman, and Fred right away, he's telling him, "Nah, white woman, old white woman." And as it's going, he's saying, Fred's warning him, stay away from the white woman. Don't mess with them. Get away from those white women.
Nothing on earth uglier than a 90-year-old white woman.
Tells him multiple times, and Lamont says how she's 91 years old. And this is something that is very funny to me, that we do know personally later on that Esther was Fred's idea. He wanted to bring LaWanda Page in, his good friend LaWanda Page, and that's something throughout the show we'll talk about throughout the series, how Red Fox in real life was such a good friend, such a good supporter. A lot of these are his buddies, and this isn't like something where you go, hey, I'm bringing my buddies in just because it makes me feel comfortable. He was fine working with anyone that they had on the show. He brought them in because he knew, 1, they were good, 2, he can get them paid, and 3, they would make the show better, which all 3 were true. So Red Fox, tip of the cap to you, man. He was a very good businessman and loyal friend. So back to this. So this is how you know Esther had not been invented yet, because he says there is nothing, and this is one of the top 5 funniest moments to me, there is nothing uglier than a 91-year-old white woman. And he would have never done that if Esther had actually been in his life at that time. We know Esther was always Queen Kong, #1 ugly. So he pulls that off fine, and as he does that, he shows him. Lamont's like, hey, we got on here the bottom, the cross swords, that's the emblem. He knows this. He got it for $15, and he's like, this is it. This is his ticket out. Lamont can sell this, he can get some cash, he can maybe get his own place, get another car, get out of there. And this is his chance to break away. We don't know yet how much he can get for it. But when you spend $15 and he knows if this has to be 800, 900, something to where he knows, hey, I can get out of here. That's a lot of money to start a life for someone at that time in the 70s. So he can do it. Fred's like, no, let's see. So they go to where do they go? They go to a place where in Beverly Hills where they can check this thing out. And the actor, one thing I always love in seeing any of these old shows is always finding a familiar face. Now, I don't always know the names, and I don't know this guy's name. I'll write it in right here. There we go. I'll write him. But he is, if you are an Andy Griffith fan, I'm an old school, I Love Lucy, Andy Griffith, What's Happening, Sanford and Son, any of those ones. Heck, even Love Boat, 70s, 60s, 50s, all the shows. But when I see familiar actors or characters, I love it. And this actor was the one in Andy Griffith, I want to say season 1, where he came to town and he had never been there, had never met a single person, but he knew every single person's story there, and it creeped everyone out. Go check that one out. That one's a really good one. But this actor was in it, and in here, he's the appraiser, and he's looking at this thing, he's the store owner, and he wants to buy this. And Lamont says, hey, and then Fred, of course, yeah, the cross swords. That tells the whole story, like he's an expert on it because Lamont tells him. But as he looks at it, he's like, hey, I can give you $750 for this, $700. And Lamont wisely, this is a good example of how Lamont, they did show, as you see in these early seasons, Lamont always felt more aggressive and more businesslike and more like a younger person. You know, he on the go, on the charge. And when he saw that, he was a sharp man. He's like, no. If he's willing to offer me that, and he tells Fred that, he pulls him aside. And this is another one of my top 5 funniest moments when he talks to Fred, and he's like, hey, now if he's willing to pay me this, just think what we can get on the market out there, man. We can get double. We might be able to get $1,500 for this. And Fred's like, and he tells him Ada, and that's when Fred's like, we'll take it. And then he says something again, and Fred's all, we'll take it. So good, so typical Fred. And this happens a lot in the show, where the first 1 to 2 seasons where Fred is like, Fred's not greedy. He sees something and he's like, we can get this. You spend 15 and we can get 800. You know what we can do with that? You know how great that is, that we would do for our business, for our home. But Lamont's like, no. Lamont is the sharp one, but he's the greedy one. And if anyone should know, right? Even though we just got introduced to him in this episode, if anyone should know to take the deal, it should be Lamont. Because he already said his dad always ruins it and blows it for him. Yet here we are. I just met them in this show. And if you cut out everything I know, I'd be going like, you know what? Something's going to happen here. Something will happen here from his dad somehow making a mistake, ruining it, something. And Lamont is going to regret not taking this. So they say no, they get out of there. And of course they go do the auction. And the auctioneer, that's another one who is, I read up on him before. He's the actor who was in Soap. I never watched Soap. That was the soap opera comedy show. But I do know him from, if anyone is a Three's Company fan out there, comment below, let me know if you remember. The spinoff, Three's a Crowd. And this was Jack's, he married the lady, and this was Jack's new father-in-law, the same actor. And he was good in that. I thought he was hilarious. He plays a very snobby guy, stuck-up guy who thinks he's so good for everything. He does that part very well. And in this one, he's the auctioneer, and they're there. You know, Lamont's got it. His piece comes up, and they're checking it out, and they're hearing the prices, and it's going, and it's like, all right, you're getting it, and you see it get all the way up, and now Lamont is telling, hey, I can actually bump this up. He bids on it, and that's when he starts doing the ear tug, the wink, and all the little funny gestures, and then the guy next to him keeps doing the wink, and then Lamont does the tie shuffle, and he's jacking the price up. Very wisely done. And he's telling, and then Fred's trying to get on it, and he's like, what are you doing? Why are you going against yourself? And he tells him, you know what? This is something we should have been doing before on the opposite ends of the room. Now, true, that's something you could have done at the beginning, but you guys, if they had thought this plan out, and they obviously didn't, you would have had a set price. Maybe once you reach 1,000, you stop, Dad, or I'll stop, Dad, or whatever the case may be, Pop. And he does, and they don't. So Fred goes around to the front, and now Lamont's going back and forth with the other guy, getting the price to go higher. And they get it way up there, and then Lamont's like, I'm done. And I can't remember if it was 14, 15, 1600. It was good, and the guy, he got it. And then you hear 2,000, and you see Lamont's face, and he's so excited. Lamont's like, oh, he's shaking, because he's thinking $2,000. You know what we can do with $2,000? And then they pan up, and another top 5 funny moment. They pan up to Fred, who's sitting in the front, and he's doing the winking back and forth. And that's a classic scene. That is, when you go through Sanford and Son, if you ever see like a commercial for it, you're watching it on TV, right? They'll say, hey, tomorrow night, Sanford and Son. I have seen that clip multiple times, as it is a very funny scene, very memorable classic scene, and it's from the first episode for anyone who is not diehard. But this is it, the scene, what he's doing. And he outbids Lamont. And of course, we get home, and in it, Lamont is ticked, you know, and Fred's like, hey, what are you so mad for? We still got the piece, right? We got it home. We're still okay. We just didn't make any money. But then you forget there's a commission, and he had to pay $200, a 20% commission, $200 just for the right to take it home. And that's all on Fred G. Sanford. And the G is for Goonie Bird, because he made a big bonehead mistake. But you can see the way Fred's talking. He's trying to calm him down. He's like, hey, Lamont, he's trying to be positive. But then they get mad, and you can see it. And this is what I said in the whole episode, setting it up. You can see how it's setting up to where Lamont is just like, I'm not like you. I'm not going to be you. I want to get out of here. I'm going to get this and get out of here. And then they had the big fight. And of course, Fred, like we said earlier, Fred picks it up and he goes to hand it to him, and it falls. He drops it out of his hands. And this is another great top 5 moment. I mean, there's some real, I'll cover that in a second. It's a top 5 moment. And as he gets it and it falls, and then, man, dead silence. You can see Lamont turning around. Fred looking sad. And he's getting in there. And as he holds it, the top 5 moment is Fred's reaction, and he goes, it slipped. I'll have that clip on here if I didn't already show it. So it's just too good. It's just too good. It slipped, and that's exactly what happened. And now, of course, it's going to be Lamont goes nuts. You want it to slip. You want me to be stuck here. You don't want me to leave. And of course, his dad doesn't want him to leave. That's one thing I love about the show, from season 1 to the last moment ever, where he says he's proud of him and he loves him. It's a great final scene. They didn't know it would be the final scene, but it's always comes back to Fred and Lamont. It always comes back to father and son, and a relationship to where actually through the 6 years, it seems like it grows stronger. The bond grows stronger because there's less fighting. It's maybe more disagreement, but less fighting and more love from each other. And I really like that. But it's a touching way. It's a touching episode. I think it's great. Now, let's give a brief summary on the episode, my thoughts on the episode, and probably you can put in the comments your thoughts on it. As far as the episode goes, compared, let's put ranking on it. I'm not going to put, I don't have numbers in every single one. I will always make a top 10 list eventually. But if I had a top 20 list for all 6 seasons of Sanford and Son, I don't think this would be top 20. I'm not putting it down. I'm not. It's just I can pull up probably 10, just 10 better than this episode in season 3. Season 3 is perhaps the greatest season of Sanford and Son. It would be the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls of NBA history. That was season 3. You don't believe me? If you're a diehard fan, you know. If you don't, if you're kind of like an average fan and you love the show, this is the channel for you, because you will learn things and you will also get to hear the top shows and episodes. And we, from my other channel, DSC and Family, we have a great community that shares with people and teaches them things. You can learn a lot just by reading the comment section, and that's what I want to get here. But in this, for one, it is a great opener. When it comes to openers, it's one of the best. It sets it up. We get to meet Fred. We get to meet Lamont. We get to see the chemistry. We get to see where they have friction with, yet at the same time, both have feelings for each other. It lets you know how Lamont is to start out. It lets us know how Fred is. It lets us know how the family works and how the business end is and what they're looking for and how rich quick schemes and possible greed from one side, while the other is just saying, hey, let's just take what we get and enjoy life. It's a very good introduction, 100%. I love the episode, right? There's many different levels of love. This is love, but not all time. This is not GOAT of episodes. Like I said, it wouldn't be in my top 20. But I can't think of another episode that does it well at setting it up. Now, another thing you will see a lot in season 1 as we cover each episode, and I'll share what my son, my 13-year-old son, said, and that was Samuel, is that when we watched it, he hasn't seen all of them. He's seen a lot of the ones, my favorite ones. He's seen a lot of them, but he hasn't seen all of season 1. And this was his first time watching it when we watched it. We got to watch each one right before we do the show. And he said he actually liked this one more than a lot of the other ones. And I believe the reason why is because it is story-based. He loves Andy Griffith. He loves I Love Lucy. He loves the simpler ones where it's story with the humor or story with the character development that you love. And that's what this episode does. A lot of season 1 does that, where they get it, where you kind of see more about the character and with a story, as opposed to season 3 on is just, it's got a story, it's got a main plot, but it's what we want, sprinkled in with nonstop humor. You know, what'd you say, sucker? What you talk? You know, all these things where it's a bunch of Esther jokes, Fred jokes, one-liners, and some of the best one-liners ever. Call me this and call me that, or what? No, sticks and stones may break my bones. Call me this and call me that. I still say that girl was fat. Remember that in the season 4? It's like things like that you never forget. Those are hilarious lines, but that gets later on, and maybe some younger generations might not get the jokes or understand them. But with this, it was very more similar to the classic shows, where it was the story was the comedy as opposed to the characters who were the comedy. That's the best way I can put this episode and the first season. So one more point I wanted to say, here is a little fun fact as well, as we try to sprinkle in fun facts throughout the episode. In this episode, we find out that we know Fred's 64. Eventually, he's going to have his 65th birthday. The very next episode, he turned 65. So we know he's 64. Episode 1 and 2 did not have a 1-year span. So we know Fred, at that time, is 64. His wife died 23 years ago. Esther, rest her soul, died 23 years ago, which would make Fred 41 when she passed away. Just a little fun fact. So this Friday, stay tuned. We will be doing we will be doing a fun fact episode on Damon Wilson, the actor that played Lamont Sanford. So stay tuned, subscribe, get your friends out there, let them know about Sanford and Son. Let me know what you think of the show. You like it, not what you're looking for, what could I change? And let me know how you feel. Talk to you guys later. Peace.